Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for our weekly tidbit. I thought that we would talk about the top 5 feeding fears, which is a great topic when you're just about to introduce solids with your babe. Feeding your child is one of the top stressors for many parents, from breastfeeding to formula feeding, introducing solids to trying to make your picky toddler get some food in them. Are they getting enough? Am I doing this right? What if my child chokes or has an allergy? It's truly difficult to trust the feeding process. You shouldn't have to worry or feel so scared to introduce solids to your baby. It should be happy, social, and an enjoyable time with you guys together. Let's try and drop that worry though and take on the adventure, familiarize, and feel confident about your baby starting solids. So the number one fear of feeding is I'm afraid my baby will choke. This is perhaps the most common fear when it comes to feeding baby. Choking can be so anxiety provoking. It's important to work through this fear because we often unintentionally could hold our baby back from advancing in texture. So what can we do? In order to get over our fear of choking, you need to first understand the gag reflex. The gag reflex is normal, it's necessary, healthy, and a protective reflex that all babies are born with. Gagging is likely to occur when you offer your baby food, whether it's purees or more solid. And in fact, you should expect your baby to gag regularly when initiating solids. Often parents mistake gagging for choking, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The gag reflex is at the front of the tongue for 6-month-old babies. So this is why offering larger pieces of food actually makes more sense, and it's the safest option. As your baby ages, their gag reflex will move further and further back, which means you can offer smaller pieces of food. This is also around the time that your baby might want to practice with the pincher grasp, which is always my favorite when they start picking up the little pieces of food. One of my favorite, most commonly with my daughter, was the peas. So being able to use those motor skills to pick up those peas. Choking, on the other hand, is much more serious, of course. This is when the airway is partially or fully obstructed. It could be due to food or another object. When this happens, you need to take measures to help your baby to reject the food from their airway, which we always recommend that you take like a first aid course if you can, just because it's just better reaction time and you know what to do. I was very aware that all of a sudden when my daughter was starting with solids that we didn't take first aid. I was like, I didn't know what to do. So just looking for like the Canadian Red Cross usually has stuff. I will be just linking a video of like what to do if your baby was to choke, because I think, obviously it just for peace of mind, right? So if you take a look here, I find this really, just like so that you can tell the difference in between what gagging would look like with your baby and choking while you're introducing solids. So gagging, you're going to see more watery eyes. More common, common would be a red face. So tongue thrusting forward. So when we're just talking about how babe has that gag reflex, that's the way that they're kind of practicing. So it is, like a part of the gagging and all that jazz. Some sounds would be more like a belching, coughing, or crying. You want to hear that sound, believe it or not. And vomiting after from straining is pretty common. So the difference from gagging to choking, when a child is choking, it's silent. So you actually do want to hear those kind of coughing sounds when they're gagging. You know that you have airflow and that it's just gagging. where choking is silent. And you might hear maybe a little bit of wheezing, but there is no coughing or crying at all. Most commonly, you see like a blank stare or a pained look, and it maybe actually get to the point that baby may turn blue, and that's when you want to enforce first aid. In addition to understanding the difference between choking and gagging, you also want to offer your baby food that is safe to and age appropriate. This means foods should be soft and easily manipulated in their mouth. A handy little way to determine if food is soft enough is to do the squish test. If you're able to mash the food in between your thumb and your index finger by applying light pressure, then the food is likely soft enough, right? So it kind of just like imitates what the mouth would be doing, and you can kind of judge from there forward. There are also a number of foods we recommend that you avoid feeding your baby until they're a little bit older. So these foods are usually hard, round, sticky, things that are going to stay in the throat and the mouth. And in fact, Health Canada recommends that you avoid some of these foods until your child is well into 4 years of age. So stuff like raisins, whole grapes, so always cutting in, not only in halves, but like in fourths. The nuts, seeds that tend to be dry and stick in the throat, just like popcorn. I mean, even us as adults, when we eat popcorn, just the leftover kind of dry pieces. Raw carrots, thickly, like thick nut butters, fresh bread, and raw lettuce are the most common ones that you don't want to use right away with babe. So top fear number 2, I'm afraid my baby isn't eating enough or eating too much. We often found ourselves nervous, when it comes to doctor checkups, right? For that reason, we often feel mega pressure around growth when they mention, like the growth chart and where your baby is at and how important it is. We're always worried about that, right? What if my doctor thinks that I'm not feeding my baby enough? Or what if the doctor thinks I've fed him too much? We eventually learn that what we need to do most is just trust the process, which I know is easier said than done. Eating is a learned behavior, right? So just like when you introduce breastfeeding, or if your baby is bottle fed, it just takes time and patience, and above all, practice, right? In the beginning, your baby may not ingest very much food necessarily, or may not be interested in the meals, and that's totally okay. We're aiming for 1 to 2 tablespoons. The most important of what your baby needs is the iron-rich foods, and that would be plenty. Your baby will go through periods of rapid growth, and you'll notice this when they're nursing, or when you're feeding them the bottle, because they'll want more and want it more often. And they appear to be kind of like a bottomless pit. And when you're breastfeeding, we call it like cluster feeding or comfort feeding, right? And that's okay. That's all a part of it. So let's talk about just kind of like reviewing the signs of when your baby is still hungry, to when just signs that baby would show you when they're full. And that will kind of, help you follow baby's lead when it comes to their hunger. So when baby is still hungry, they'll tend to, open their hands and open their mouth. So kind of just like that gesture of like, I want more, reaching for the spoon, pointing out nearby food, and using words or gestures to communicate, obviously depending on how old baby is. Looking into signs of if baby was full, when they like close their mouth, kind of like clenching their lips, they're telling you, no, will shake their head or turn away. They're like, no, I'm done. And you notice like that just the pace of them eating is slower. And yeah, pushing away or throwing food. So those are like main indicators, you know, that baby is done. And we just say, all done, and they're good. At the end of the day, weight is one of the most, is the many factors that health professionals, of course, are going to be looking at to ensure that baby is growing. So obviously keep an eye on that. That's important. If your baby is meeting their developmental milestones and is having healthy poops and wet diapers, you likely don't have to worry, right? That's the indication that everything's working well. Intake will vary, of course, from child to child, day to day, and meal to meal. With like, you know, you hear at the beginning, even when you're breastfeeding, when it's just breast milk, sometimes it can take several days before baby's taking a poop. So the next top fear is I'm afraid my baby isn't getting enough of the right nutrients. This is so common. The good news is that it's not difficult to meet your baby's nutritional needs. And when starting solids, the main nutrient you want to keep in mind is iron. That's the number one that you really have to concentrate on. And up until this point, your baby has been exclusively eating breast milk or having infant formula. And this food has provided 100% of babe's nutritional needs. So it covers everything for you. But around 6 months, the iron stores that baby has stored up inside the womb, it's starting to go down, and it just needs to start being replaced by food. So breast milk and formula are still your baby's main source of nutrition while starting solids. In fact, at around 12 months of age, your baby will still rely on breast milk or formula for about half of their calories. It is a gradual transition away from a fully liquid diet. So we say within the first year that solids are really like, they're just for practice, they're for fun, and really their main source would be their milk. Continue to breastfeed or bottle feed your baby on demand, knowing that they're getting the bulk of their nutritional needs in that way, and start the solid journey by focusing on high iron foods to ensure they're getting enough iron to meet growing babies' needs. Do your best to offer high iron food at every eating opportunity. Next top fear, I'm afraid my baby will have food allergies. Oh, of course. It also it seems as though you're always hearing about how the rates of allergies are increasing. However, the rates of food allergies have actually remained consistent, and only 2.5% of children have a peanut allergy. The risk of a food allergy is higher for babies with severe eczema, a known egg allergy, or those who have either had a parent or a sibling with an allergy. Then you have to watch it a little bit more. While you can't completely prevent the odds of your baby developing a food allergy, there are steps that you can take to lower the risk. Don't hold off feeding your baby's food with a higher risk of allergies. We used to recommend that delaying feeding foods such as like the higher risk of allergies in peanuts, fish, egg whites until 2 or even 4 years old. But now we know that this doesn't work. Studies now show that introducing babies to these foods between 4 to 11 months is the best for allergy prevention. Work your way through the top allergens one at a time. And just so that you guys know, kind of like the top allergen foods include eggs, nuts, fish, cow's milk, mustard out of all things, soy, sulfates, and wheat are your top allergens. And the last one, and we hear about this quite often, I'm afraid my baby will be a picky eater. We can't help but have, those wonderful idealistic thoughts that if we just fed our babies a wide range of food and different flavors, that they would be adventurous eaters forever. Not. Kids, kids are not always adventurous eaters by nature. It can be very frustrating, but it is also completely normal. Some may be adventurous at the beginning, and that can change when they get older. We find that babies and kids tend to fall into one of the three different eating personalities. So the first one being early adapters. So these children are adventurous eaters. They're naturally curious about trying new foods. They don't like accept new food immediately. It may only take a few exposures before they learn to like it, or they like it right away. My daughter was definitely an early adapter. She would be excited to see food, and she is still food motivated at 8 years old, but not every kid is like that. The second one would be slow and steady. So most children fall into this category. They're initially more cautious when offered new foods, but will gradually learn to like them over time. So we always say to just to reintroduce as many times. We've had our dietitian that comes here very often say, like, offer these foods like 20, 30 times sometimes before they take it on and like it. So just keep on introducing it. Uber cautious eater. This child is extremely cautious about trying new foods. Any attempt to encourage, even gently, may cause the child to put up a barrier and resolve not to try the food at all. They just won't. According to Marianne Jacobson, a pediatric dietitian, this eating personality type often shows up when solids are introduced, so right away. So those were our top feeding fears. I hope that just going through them kind of helped you guys. Feeding isn't a linear process. There are several ups and downs to go through as it is a part of a child's normal progression in their relationship with food. So we just encourage you to learn and get comfortable with it. Keep it up, read up on it, and just a reminder that you're doing great, because it is a really stressful thing. Like I said at the beginning of this tidbit, and it's a major stressor for a lot of parents. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to a local dietitian. If I could help you guys in any way, I will be happy to do so. Always take a look down below. I always add on some links that are related. And we will talk to you guys soon.